Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome to Superhero Sitdown episode 13. On today's very special episode, I'm going to be discussing, along with Greg Alba over from the Real Rejects and my buddy Warren, also known as the Cosmic Wonder, and we're going to get into heavy spoilery discussion about the biggest superhero movie of all time, Avengers Endgame. So, guys, starting with you, Greg, introduce yourself. Give a bit of a background. Even though I've had both of these fine gentlemen over on Superhero Sitdown, you guys can check out their individual episodes, links in the description of this video. So Greg, starting off with you, just give a brief description of yourself, your channel.
Yeah, I run the Cosmic Wonder channel. I do a great job there. I don't script anything apparently, but I do a great job on the editing. I'm barely in any video. No, I run the Real Rejects YouTube channel with my buddy John, who I think should come on here sometime. Yes. And yeah, we do reactions, reviews, sketches once in a while. Actually, our Avengers Endgame non-spoiler review has an opening sketch at the top, which fortunately has been getting a lot of likes lately. So grateful for that. And yeah, at the Greg Alba on Instagram, Twitter from LA. And excited to be here. Supes, you're a great guy. Cosmic Wonder, amazing channel. Warren, looking like fucking Dean Cain. Sorry for swearing. Yeah.
So now, Warren, over to you. Introduce yourself. Give him a bit of a background.
Well, I would say I run the Real Rejects. Pull it off like Greg just pulled it off. That was awesome. My name's Warren. I have the channel The Cosmic Wonder. I've been watching this guy, Matthew, since he started. I've been watching Greg over at the Real Rejects for a while now. The guys are hilarious. Be sure to check them out. They have great content. Yeah, you can find me at The Cosmic Wonder, and Avengers Endgame was amazing. Can't wait to talk about it.
All right, so guys, getting right into it, not wasting any time. Starting with you, Greg, what are your initial overall thoughts of Avengers Endgame?
I could easily sum that up in one sentence. It's my favorite MCU film, easily. Like, I saw it. I mean, Warren, you said you saw it twice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Supes, you saw it 3 times.
And I'm going tonight for my 4th.
Aren't you in school?
It's the weekend, Greg. It's the weekend.
Yeah. I've seen it 4 times than we have.
I don't know how you got tickets for that.
No,
yeah,
I actually did school yesterday just to watch it.
There you go.
That's a great excuse. You have a great future ahead of you. Yeah, I saw it. The first time I saw it, I knew that it was my favorite Avengers movie. Yeah. But then the second time I watched it, I was like, yeah, this is my favorite Marvel movie. I've seen each of the Marvel movies at least everyone at least twice at this point. So to be able to, so going back a second time, I was like, yeah, this is definitely my favorite one.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Going into this movie, this was literally the most anticipated movie of all time. And after getting to the first 10 minutes of it, I think we can all agree that after those first like 10, 15 minutes or so, we knew that we didn't know anything that was going to happen. And that Marvel was really pulling all of their tricks out of the bag with this movie. And, bro, this movie just overall redefines the word epic. Like, I don't see any superhero movie anytime in the future, anytime soon, even coming remotely close to the awesomeness that we got in Avengers Endgame. Now, Warren, kicking it over to you. What are your initial overall thoughts of Avengers Endgame?
I can say the exact same thing that Greg said. It was not only just my favorite Avengers movie, favorite MCU movie. And it's funny that you said like the first like 5 to 15 minutes, we knew that we weren't going to know anything. But I was thinking, I was like, okay, 5 minutes go by, 10 minutes go by, 15 minutes go by. I'm like, okay, they basically just showed us every single trailer.
Yes.
So every trailer that they showed us was, except for the, like at the end where Thanos has his sword and the Avengers are, the 3 of them are walking to him. I'm like, okay, so they only literally showed us 15 minutes of a 3-hour movie. And I was like, we have no idea what's about to happen. Like, we have no idea what's about to happen. And it was such a good thing that we had no idea. Because we kind of had an idea, right? Time travel, stuff like that. You know how they were going to do it, what Thanos was going to do, him in the beginning dying and everything like that. Like, it was such a good twist on something that could easily fail, like time travel. And it's funny they reference these other time travel movies.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh man, time travel, that's like, it's been done before. Some people are like, I hate time travel, blah, blah, blah. But they did it in a really amazing way. And it was just like the best movie ever. Like, really, just amazing.
And after watching this movie, I think we can all agree when I say that this movie was made for the fans. You can't go into this movie not having watched all of the other MCU movies. And what I really loved is that this was really the culmination of everything that's happened in the MCU. Not just the culmination of the story between Thanos and the Avengers. As we saw in Avengers Endgame, that they literally time traveled and went through all of the different MCU movies, and they just really took us through memory lane, and it was just so amazing to just go back to those moments and again expand on those moments, because we saw scenes that we never thought even happened, like when they went back to the Battle of New York and we saw, you know, the aftermath of after they were like standing over Loki, and then we see the, you know, the Hydra agents, well, the Shield agents at the time,
right? Yeah,
come in and get the scepter, and then we also saw the Ancient One fighting in the Battle of New York, which is something we never saw. I mean, there's just so many like holes they patched with this movie, and they're holes that we didn't necessarily know were even there. So now
behind the scenes.
Yeah, and super behind the scenes, like the fact that they brought all of these people back, like to bring Natalie Portman back, to bring the kid from Iron Man 3 back.
Did they really bring back Natalie Portman? That was my question when I was watching this movie. I was like, is this a deleted scene that they just threw in here? Because it's like they obviously brought back a lot of other people, but Natalie Portman was one of the ones where I'm like, was this? I know she was at the premiere, which makes me go, okay, she must not have bad blood with them, but she could have easily just had a deleted take that they used there to throw her in there.
I mean,
anyway, yeah. I'm sorry if that killed your excitement there. You seem like you're really bummed out by that one possible thought. Like, he's like, maybe.
It could have been. But man, it was just awesome to be taken through memory lane as we watched this movie. And after watching it 3 times, after I initially watched it my first time, I was scared that watching it again, I'm gonna the first and second act is gonna be a drag to get through, because that last final 40-50 minutes is the best 50 minutes I've ever seen in any comic book movie. Mm-hmm. So I thought watching it again, like that first and second act is going to be a drag, but it wasn't. Yesterday I watched it twice in one day, and I was just captivated so much by the film that I wasn't even thinking about anything else other than what's happening right in front of my eyes, which is something I absolutely love.
Well, that's why I love this movie, because if you pay it, I kind of feel like every act is 40 to 45 minutes. You might have a better gauge of that than I would, because to me, it's sort of read as every act is 40 to 45 minutes, and then you have a 20-minute cap off, like a resolution for all the characters to wrap it all up. And so basically, when I was watching that movie, I was really impressed by how there's not really a lot of action in the first 2/3 of this movie. You know, you get the Hawkeye in Tokyo, you get Cap versus Cap, but the part of what makes it so gripping and compelling, and why I think it's my favorite, one of the many reasons why it's one of my favorite Marvel films, and my favorite one, is because it's so character driven, and it doesn't rely on any cliche generic excitement. It just relies on just damn good storytelling from beginning to end with some wonderful character drama. You get the humor, but it doesn't feel like a comedy by any stretch. It's it's a drama with a lot of humor that is just so damn gripping, and that was one of the things I least expected out of this movie, because it's Infinity War was a lot of excitement, a lot of fun, a lot of cramming it all in, and this one surprisingly, I was surprised by how much it actually took its time. I love the pacing of it, how it it builds. It starts off really slow and somber, and it just builds and builds and builds. And when you get to that big finale, you've really earned that finale, as opposed to, oh, we need that big finale, don't we? You feel the emotions in that finale. Yeah,
I have to agree with that. When I saw it the second time, and Greg, he's going to hold that 3 times over us this whole entire time that we filmed this. Second time I saw it, I thought the first time I was I came out of the movie theater, didn't even know what to think. I already knew it was my favorite movie of all time. But I come and I'm like, maybe it was a little rushed. I'm like, maybe there was so much. But then I saw it the second time. I'm like, no, absolutely not. Everything is there for an exact perfect reason. Kind of like you said, 40, 45 minutes segments until leading up to the end. But everything had its perfect place in the movie. I wouldn't have taken anything out. I would have watched another hour, another 2 hours of it. I know that would be hard for a lot of people, but you could have extended some of the scenes for me, and I would have been really, really happy. But like you were saying, Soups, I like seeing kind of like what happens after that we hadn't seen before, like kind of like a behind the scenes thing. So everything had a very, very specific purpose, while at the same time, the Russo brothers, Kevin Feige, Christopher Marcus, Stephen McFeely, they gave us everything that we wanted in a way that we didn't really expect. So it's for the fans, but they also did the movie justice in having like a good story, a good plot, and yeah, man, it was dark at some points. Like it started off really dark, right? Like when Tony got back, and you're like, oh, he got back, and he's kind of talking to the captain and like, oh, we failed, I couldn't do it, I lost the kid, and you're like, okay, well they're gonna be on a team now. But then he snaps and he's like, no, like you weren't there for me, I don't trust you, you're a liar. And then he collapses, and it's just like, oh, okay, I guess this isn't going to bring them together right away, right? It's going to take some time. And it immediately hits you. It's kind of like the snap was real. They're not just going to brush that aside, right?
Yeah.
But I like the fact that they kind of brought everybody back maybe a little bit after halfway to where that wasn't the focus. All of a sudden it's, we have to kill Thanos, right? It's back at the, we have to kill Thanos again.
Yeah, that's why I loved it so much. I think sometimes people think just because if you do something different, that means subverting expectations. Then I thought this movie subverted expectations in all the right ways. Because when they do kill Thanos, I know a lot of people had to take a second to go, is this going to be a good movie? Like, did they rush this? What the hell just happened?
Yeah.
Because I was part of that. I went to a press screening for this, and even on opening night, the same reaction both times when Thanos gets killed. It's shock. Everyone's like, you hear people going, whoa, what the hell is happening right now? And then when it goes to 5 years later, I got chills at that, because I think I audibly said out, and I don't like being like the guy who's talking during a movie, but I did say, like, this is gonna be fucking awesome. Like, this is gonna be crazy, because it's just so different. You don't see that element coming, and because for a lot of the movie they don't even have a specifically defined bad guy, yet they managed to give us both. Because I think as a fan for this, after coming off of Infinity War, what you want is to have a build up to them going up against Thanos and beating him. So not only did they manage to like completely subvert our expectations by killing him off at the very beginning, but then getting Thanos from the past to come back, running with the "I am inevitable" theme, and still getting the battle against Thanos in a way that doesn't feel crammed or forced. It feels natural to the storyline. Because at the beginning of this movie, when they killed Thanos, it was so unexpected. And this movie, in terms of fan service, managed to not only give us what we expected, but also completely exceed our expectations. Because of the fact that they killed Thanos in the beginning of the movie, I remember being in that crowd with everyone going, like at the press screening on opening night, all of us were going, what this, as I think all of us thought we were going into a movie, even with the time travel element. I think a lot of us thought that, oh, they're probably going to use time travel to get rid of the stones before Thanos can get them, so they can prevent the snap from ever happening. And then they set up a whole different movie where they can't undo any of that. What they'll have to do is cooperate with the present situation they're in. So doing a 5 years later jump, I thought was a brilliant idea. And what was also cool was we all, as fans, we wanted that build-up fight. We wanted to get to the big finale battle against Thanos. And it can appear that when you kill Thanos in the beginning that we're not going to get that. Because for a lot of that time travel sequence, I remember thinking, like, an hour into this movie, I was thinking, is there even really a bad guy in this movie? Is there even really a villain in this film? And the fact that they bring back a different version of Thanos, which I actually didn't even mention in my spoiler talk, which is more akin to the Infinity Gauntlet comic book, a guy who, because I think Infinity War Thanos was more like philosophical, a little bit more. It seemed to be like kind of a weird, compassionate thing about him. Where in this version, you get just the brute, evil kind of warrior Thanos. Yeah. And then so having that, and then so when you get to the finale with him, you manage to get both. You get this quick wrap up, and then you're also rewarded with the big finale battle against Thanos. And having it just blew my mind that they managed to weave that in without it feeling forced and more than just a fan service thing, but just proper good storytelling.
For sure. From beginning to end, this felt like a completely different Thanos. At the end of Infinity War, a lot of people were saying that Thanos might have been the hero in Infinity War. But once we got to the final act of this movie, and he's like rubbing it in their face, and he's saying how he's gonna create a new world where the people that survived the snap aren't gonna remember any of the people that got dusted. And then he becomes really like menacing, and he starts rubbing it. He starts rubbing it in their face and starts threatening them. And then as a fan, you're literally just like rooting so hard for the Avengers to finally like kill him. And it was that third act was, dude, that was a nerd's wet dream, bro. Like, oh my god.
You see that when it comes to that third act, I know a lot of people love that airport battle in Civil War, and the first time I watched Civil War, I did love that battle a lot, and I felt the emotion for it.
Amazing.
On rewatches, I start feeling like this fight really isn't all that necessary to be in this movie when I watch it. But the difference here is this fight is unbelievably necessary. So each time you rewatch it, it's still a rewarding battle. It's more than just cool fan service fight. It's important in terms of story context.
Yeah, it really is, and I think they did. I mean, you think of that scene and how many heroes and characters are in that scene, and it's kind of like, how do you do all of them justice? Well, I think they went with the right direction, like the right route. You don't do all of them justice. You kind of show them all, but you give the main ones that you're focused on, you give them justice, because after all, right, it's wrapping up the story arc for
the OGs,
right? So you give them justice, and then you have awesome scenes with all the other ones, like they had like where all the women got together.
Yeah, that was badass.
And they blasted that part out. Like, that was a really, really cool part, and that was a really cool way to bring all of those together. And of course, you have the main three, Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man. You have that fight where it's just them and Thanos, and it's like, oh, I wanted that so badly, right? I wanted that so badly. So that was done justice, and then just everybody else coming in with Doctor Strange, just bringing everybody else in. Falcon flies in. He stabs people with his wings, something that we haven't seen before like that. And just everybody coming in. It was just, you saw everybody, and it was so satisfying. But then they kind of focused on like what you wanted them to focus on, and that is fighting Thanos.
Yeah.
And it was this huge thing where it's like everybody fighting Thanos at once. It was a good thing they had the army, because the people who fought him, you wanted to see fight him. Like, those were the people that you wanted to see take on Thanos.
For sure.
Definitely.
For sure. And guys, oh my god, when Captain America wielded Thor's hammer, I've never jumped, screamed so loud in during a movie. And like, I was sitting next to my two best friends. I spilled my friend's drink all over my friend, and my other friend, his junior ring flew off his finger. And guys, I'm not even lying. We had to stay like 15 minutes after the movie and like scan every row for the ring. But that's how insane that moment was. And
it reminded me a little bit of the Force Awakens moment when Rey grabs the lightsaber. But it's more rewarded than that, because they've really established. I know how to spell it better than I know how to pronounce it. Mjolnir. I always forget the pronunciation. Mjolnir. Because they've established so much that only Thor can wield that, and then they tease that moment. To me, the most famous scene in Age of Ultron is when they're all trying to pick up the hammer, and Cap slightly maneuvers it, and so when Thor says, "I knew it," like that's the perfect way to like have that perfect button before you start getting to it. And I really love the choreography too, of how he's switching between the hammer and the shield the whole time.
Oh my god.
They threw that little scene in there where Thor gets Mjolnir back and Captain gets Stormbreaker. No, give me that one. The little one.
Oh my god. Yes, it was perfect.
But even before that, you get to see Thor using Stormbreaker and Mjolnir simultaneously. So you get all this stuff. To me, the biggest fan service moment is the battle, because I think the time traveling through previous MCU films is more story context than it is fans. Like, it is good service to fans, but it's so essential to the story. But then the finale battles where you get like pure fan service. And by like the 2-hour mark, you're like, you deserve it. So
Yeah. And the things they did, like the little things, like Thor throwing up Mjolnir and then hitting it with Stormbreaker at Thanos, it's just, you're kind of like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Captain throwing the shield and then throwing Mjolnir at the shield, making it reflect and hit Thanos in the back. You're like, this is amazing. Like, you're just sitting there with the biggest grin on your face. And I was yelling too. Like, when he picked it up, I was like, it's Captain, it's Captain, it's Captain, it's Captain. And I yelled, like, Captain! It was, that was amazing. Yeah.
And then
it was a fan service.
Yes, for sure. And then after we get this beautiful shot of only Captain America standing right in front of Thanos' whole army invading Earth, and it's just Captain America. And then, of course, Sam Wilson says, on your left. And then we see Doctor Strange's portals. Oh my God, guys. This was just the ultimate fan service moment. And to see all of those heroes really stand together in the same shot, same frame, ready to fight alongside together with that OG Avengers theme in the background. And then Cap finally saying, Avengers Assemble.
Yeah.
It's just, that was my favorite part of the movie, to be honest.
I think, oh, sorry, please, you go.
And then we all see them like running together towards the army, and just that music just all builds up. And it's just, I was literally crying tears of joy because I never thought I would see this on the big screen with all of these characters together facing Thanos. Because going into this movie, I thought for them, in order for them to have all of these characters, I just think it's too much for Thanos to take. But we obviously saw that both sides of the playing field were evenly leveled out, and it was just the perfect action sequence.
Well, yeah, like what Warren brought up with having the army there really helps out a lot, because they were very specific on who's going to actually get to punch Thanos or like go one-on-one with Thanos. I was so impressed with the emotional impact this movie managed to generate with having everyone return, because I remember when Infinity War ended, even though I was like, whoa, that was a fucking ending, that's crazy. I like everyone, and I'm sure all of us too, none of us were going, they're not going to come back. We all knew they were going to come back.
Yeah.
And when we all speculate about it, about what Endgame would be or Avengers 4 would be, I feel there was a cynical sort of mindset put out there of, we all know they're going to come back. It's going to be it might be some cop-out maneuver. And I think the way they handled it within the context of its storytelling, where in that moment when Cap, like you referenced that image where Cap is looking upon Thanos and the army, the last thing on my mind was the people might be back. That was the last thing on my mind. I completely forgot about it. I was so in the moment. So when they do come back, I did the second time especially, I actually had like tears of joy when you do hear Sam and then the portal opens, because I thought out of everything that would be the least surprising to me, it would be when everyone comes back. But the way they handled it, they still managed to make that moment a surprise, which is what I did not expect to happen at all with this movie for the past year, thinking about, like, because I never had a doubt they would come back, and no one did. So I feel like that's the power of the good storytelling here, is they managed to even make that a surprise moment.
And you make a really good point, because like you said, we're all like, okay, they're coming back, right? We got Black Panther 2, Doctor Strange 2, like we got all these movies coming. It's like, we know they're coming back. But at the same time, they did such a good job at the storytelling and with the fight scene that you're so captivated by just what's happening in front of you. You're not even thinking about it. You're like, what the heck is about to happen? Like, Thanos just beat Iron Man, Thor, and Captain. We know Captain gets up because he always gets up, but like, what's about to happen? And then boom, you hear Sam. Right, it's just kind of like, oh yeah, everybody, like I totally forgot about everybody, like, oh, this is it, this is what's gonna happen. And it's like Supes was saying, it's like that moment. There's a scene in every Avengers movie where it shows every Avenger, right? It's the circle in the first Avengers movie. It's in the very beginning in Age of Ultron where they're all like running together and they show us from the side. And that's kind of the same thing we got from this side, like all of them running together right now. And it's like you saw all of them, and there were so many of them, and it was just like the coolest thing to see. Mm-hmm. And like Greg was saying, it came out of nowhere, and you're just like, I forgot. Of course they're back. Like, of course this is how it works. Yeah. It's like so much more satisfying because you forgot, because you were captivated in the story.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the only way that hits, because it could have easily just been this movie could have easily just been cool fan service movie, but they decided to really go the extra mile here on literally every scale you can think of. Because I know the big thing to do is think about the finale, but a lot of time when I look back on this movie, I think about the first 2/3 as well. Because the reason that finale is so, I mean, think about it. There's a much bigger impact to the circle shot in Avengers Assemble as opposed to the opening shot in Age of Ultron. Right. Because the Age of Ultron shot is like, I get within story context, like, yeah, in the beginning they're together and by the end they're apart. But still, like that opening shot isn't as cool or rewarding because of the fact that you're just like, it's a cool fan shot that we're just getting. Right. And this movie could have easily just been a lot of that. But because of the weight felt throughout, because it's kind of a weird experience because I remember watching Infinity War for so much of Infinity War, especially in the first act, there was so much cheering in both the two times I first saw it. And everyone just fucking cheering. And then everyone's sad by the end. And then this movie had the complete opposite, where you're like, it's really sad and really dark and really serious. And then by the time you get to the finale, it's all cheering. It's a very opposite effect. So as a standalone MCU film, I think it's wonderful. But I think as a companion piece to Infinity War, it's that much better.
Yeah, and coming off of what you just said, with all of those characters, when they came back, I love how within everything that was happening, they still managed to shed some light on that relationship between Tony and Doctor Strange. Tony confronts Doctor Strange, and they talk about the 14,605 outcomes. And then, towards the end of the film, where Thanos is about to put on the gauntlet and snap his fingers again, Tony looks at Doctor Strange, and you just see that one come up. And then you know what's about to happen, but you're just not ready.
It's like, a very. He's like, is he making a one? I'm like, why does he take? He has this like very specific way of doing the one. Like, he's doing a one. Okay.
It was almost like he was like, wait, hold on. This other guy has to kill this guy, and one.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was awesome to bring that back because they had to bring that back. Obviously. And it's good that they didn't focus too much on it. Like, I was partially expecting, like, Doctor Strange to pop up just, like, randomly. Like, by the way, I'm still alive because I'm the master of the mystic arts. I'm kind of in the soul world right now. But by the way, this is what you kind of have to do. Let me help you out a little bit, and then you can bring everybody back. Like, almost something like that, right? Yeah. But it was good because he actually was dead. And then when he just came back, he knew what he had to do. He knew he had to bring everybody back. And they just tied it in with that little thing at the end, like you were saying, he asked, he's like, is this a scenario? It's like, well, I can't tell you.
No spoilers.
Like the classic rules of like fortune telling, right? If I tell you, right, it won't happen or something like that, or you will cause it to happen. It's always one of the two, right? If I tell you it won't happen, or if I tell you it'll inevitably happen. So it was cool that they referenced that, and at the end it was just kind of like, hey, this is it. And I knew when he told him that, I was like, he's gonna die. I was like, that to me, that I was like, he told him that he can't know because it won't happen, and like it's that one, the way he was looking at him, I was like, he's gonna die.
Yeah, I also in this finale, I really liked the slight teases and nods to the Infinity Gauntlet comic book that while because I was so in the moment, I didn't realize it, and I actually didn't realize it until because I did a spoiler talk for my channel that I just put up this morning. And it's funny doing this talk because now I'm talking about a bunch of things that I didn't talk about. And, it's like, this is one of those, like at the beginning of my talk, I said I could talk about this movie for hours. Yeah. And then now that I'm talking with you guys, I'm like, man, there's so much stuff being brought up that I just didn't even put in my very long video. But like the slight nods I remember in the Infinity Gauntlet comic book, I mean, even with Nebula having a tease of a moment where she does pick up the gauntlet from Clint's hands. I'm like, oh damn, is this gonna be it? I felt like that was a subtle nod to when she does get the gauntlet in the comic. I completely forgot too that when in my trailer 2 breakdown, when Cap does the shield lock and his teeth are grinding, I remember very specifically pointing out that I feel like that's going to be a nod to the moment in the Infinity Gauntlet comic when he goes one-on-one with Thanos, and Thanos pretty much just shatters his shield. He smacks him. So I like that nod was there. But even Doctor Strange bringing everyone to the battle, I'm like, oh yeah, that's how that, you know, I know there's Adam Warlock and everything there in the comic, but that's even in reference to the comic as well. So I love those subtle touches, because it's not just, oh, that's directly ripped from the pages. It's a reference to, which in some ways I like more for a film like this.
Yeah, and it's funny thinking about it now. Like in the second, they do it kind of the same way, because he does perform the snap, and then half of them die. But then Nebula undoes it, and then Doctor Strange brings everybody.
Yes.
So he puts them there in the beginning, right? But then he brings them there again. So they did a great job at not ripping it off, like you were saying, Greg, but just giving us those subtle hints that kind of make you think after, like, oh yeah, like that was in the comic, like that did happen.
Yeah.
And for a while, I was with you. I was like, wait, is Nebula gonna get the gauntlet? And like now, because remember, like all the talk about the second threat. I'm like, where's the second threat? I guess Thanos, like past Thanos, is the second threat because it's a different Thanos. Different. I'm like, maybe. But that maybe was just a rumor, I guess, right? So I was like, maybe this is it. Like maybe she's the second threat, and then present time Nebula comes in with past Gamora to fight past Nebula.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of the past versus past stuff, I really think that's what I mean by the time travel elements are more than just fan service, because they are so character based and so character focused. It like old Nebula to like 2014 Nebula not understanding or siding at all with present day Nebula makes so much sense, because Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 Nebula is definitely a villain. She's definitely a bad guy there. But even going out so far as to Captain America versus Cap, that version of Cap in 2012's Avengers was a very different Captain America. It was pre-Winter Soldier, where his whole mindset of things had changed, very one note. And even him believing that was just Loki was so smart. Like that is exactly what that Captain America would think within the context of what the situation just came out of, how Loki, I think that is, the writing of the construct of it is so brilliant to me. So brilliant.
It was, and just to talk about that part, it was because I was like, oh, okay, we're finally getting it. We're gonna get that that classic that classic time travel. Like, oh, this is a no of time travel. You can't let your past self see your future self, right? So I was like, oh no, like they screwed it up. But he's like, okay. I'm like, oh, that's smart. I'm like, oh, that's really smart. I'm like, okay, like kudos to you, writers. Like that was good. That was really good.
And speaking on the past moments of this film, guys, my theater was gasping when Captain America walked into that elevator. I thought we were about to get that elevator fight scene all over again.
The Winter Scepter. Yeah, I thought that was exactly what was going to happen again. That twist was really good too. I love seeing that Hail Hydra part. Just kind of like, oh, because again, I'm like, we're about to see the Winter Soldier fight scene again. I'm like, this is exactly what's going to happen. It's going to be like a little nod to it. The Russo brothers directed that movie. They directed this movie. I'm like, that's what we're about to see. But then they just completely take it, and he just says Hail Hydra and walks out of the elevator. I'm just like, oh, they got me again. Like, oh, man.
Well, sorry, please continue.
No, I'm done. I just think it's great.
I think in terms of a companion piece to Infinity War, just even that little nugget of a moment is kind of symbolic for me in that department, because Infinity War was the cool, lot of action, a lot of and Infinity War, you probably would have got that cool, like the fight. Yeah. But in this one, it relies a lot more on, wits and brains as opposed to just a bunch of cool action. So I think in reference to that elevator fight, instead of doing a fight again, it's all tactic. And which is what a lot of this movie is a lot of tactic. So I think that I don't know how much symbolism there really is there, but I think reading into it there is. So
absolutely.
Greg, and coming off of what you just said, when it comes to brains and bronze, we obviously got Professor Hulk, which was a completely different version of the Hulk. And to be honest, he didn't really rub me the right way, because he had his comedic moments, but after not getting Hulk at all in Infinity War, in Endgame, I was expecting to see the strongest version of the Hulk, and I wanted to finally see him say Hulk smash and go ham in that final battle. But after watching Endgame, we didn't really see Hulk throw a punch at all or really do any work because, all right, they go through that second act where they retrieve all the stones and then he snaps his fingers and he's basically like handicapped for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what it looks like though. You've seen it in like the 2012 Avengers and every.
Yeah, and then when they went back, I was like, I want that old back.
Oh, so you actually, that's kind of fun. What's funny is I've heard more people take issue with what they did with Thor more than they had.
Yeah, Thor's another one. Thor's another one because that little drunken fat guy gag that just went on too long. And after getting him in Infinity, really? Where he was so badass, and in Ragnarok, and then to go from that to this, it was a tough transition.
See, for me, it wasn't because there was a 5-year gap. So, Supes, you want to pick it back up? How you hate Professor Hulk and you hate Fat Thor and you don't like this movie at all? And you wish this movie was never made.
On second thought,
yeah, it was just a tough transition from Infinity War Thor to Endgame Thor. And after those first 15 minutes where Thor is a complete badass and he goes for the head, and then we see like a complete turn and, you know, downfall of that version of Thor, it was hard to see. But ultimately, once we got him in that final battle, I was perfectly fine with that character. But it was just a running gag that didn't really make me laugh, even though that was their intention.
You see, even though it was funny to me, and I understand the complaint, I do, and even actually with what you're saying with Professor Hulk, I actually do get where you're coming from in that department. For me, because of the story, though,
yeah,
like my opinion, if this was I mean, I think a lot of us thought there'd be a time jump or like I feel like a lot of us thought like maybe like a few months, 6 months, perhaps. But to go 5 years and live in this world, to me, it made perfect sense. There's a reason why Thor kind of just snapped. There's a reason why Thor just snapped and like cut off Thanos' head. And even everyone in the room was like, "What did you do?" I think it was Rocket who said that. Like, what did you do? Because he knew that if he had just aimed a little bit higher, he would have prevented all of this from happening. Right. So the guilt of all that washing over him made a lot of sense to me that he would go down that route. And I feel like we've got in, the very serious version of Thor. We've got the really funny version of Thor in Ragnarok. Mm-hmm. And for where we were as a character standpoint, I mean, it was more than just a gag to me, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, I get how some people kind of view it as that joke got old, but for me, it was more than just a joke. It like, sure, there was a lot of humor to be had there, but it was more than just a joke. Like, they made it within context of the character when he's talking with his mom about his whole, instead of striving to be who you're supposed to be, you should strive to just be the best version of who you currently are. I thought was very powerful and important for the Thor character to wrap up his journey in this particular storyline. And in terms of Hulk, I also really like that too, because Hulk is one of the more fascinating characters to me in terms of the amount of shades we've seen of the Hulk in this whole MCU franchise. You get the Mark Ruffalo there with I'm always angry Cap, and then you get the Thor Ragnarok one where Hulk is trying to take over, and then you get the Infinity War one where Hulk doesn't even want to come out to play. And I think because of the 5-year gap, to me, it doesn't feel like this is a transition that I have to adjust to. For me, I'm like, it's been 5 years.
Right.
They're going to be different.
Right.
Because even Tony's very different if you think about it. Tony art from complete narcissistic, cocky jerk, womanizer to a guy living on a house by the lake right. with a daughter, married, settled down, wanting to rest. So even he is totally different. But the running theme, though, for all these characters, even though they're all different, is because they're the Avengers, they don't know how to move on from what happened because they felt they could have changed it. So they make it their responsibility, even despite the fact of how all of them have pretty much changed. The only one who really hadn't changed for me at all was Rhodey. Like, Rhodey's kind of just seems like he was the same guy before. Yeah.
Doing my thing.
Yeah, I'm a military guy. I'm sarcastic. Right, yeah.
Well, it's funny because you make really, really good points. And because I thought, I was like, Thor's my favorite character. I love
Yeah.
Thor the most because he's just like he's a god, right? He's like this awesome guy. It's like what I want to be, right? What I wish I could be.
Yeah.
And it's just like I'm like, you know what? This is a very real thing that they did. It's very real because the remorse that he feels, because he could have killed Thanos, like Greg was saying, just like a little bit higher, no snap, right? And none of them go through any of that, right? But he didn't, and that's real remorse. And they did a great job, like Greg was saying, when he sees his mom and he has to seek counsel from his mom. And he's like, I'm having a panic attack. And it's just like, it's very real, right? Because he's back to his home, saw his mom who died that very same day. And I thought that when he summoned the lightning at the end, where it's him, Tony, and Captain, I'm like, okay, he's going to summon it. He's going to get his armor back. He's not going to be fat anymore. But it's like, oh,
that's what I thought.
He's still fat. Like, that makes sense. I'm like, you just can't like lose, 50 pounds with lightning. I'm like, I don't know, he's a god maybe. But then I was like, okay, but I didn't notice it that much after that. If that made sense. Because it's black and everything's moving, and he still had an epic fight. Like it was amazing. He had Stormbreaker and Mjolnir. The way he did it, like I stopped paying attention after that. So it didn't bug me that much because I understand why they did it. It made perfect sense. Like Greg said, there's the 5-year time gap. There's a lot that Thor had to think about in those 5 years. Specifically, like he's now lost everybody. He got Asgard, well, what's remaining of Asgard back, but Loki, his mother, his father, Heimdall, who I was surprised we didn't see in the movie. But he lost everything, so it's like that takes its toll. And then as far as Professor Hulk is concerned, I called Professor Hulk like since the very first leaked photo that we got. I was like,
the concept art.
Yeah, I was like, this looks way more like Banner. I was like, so this is probably Professor Hulk. And then like, everybody started saying it more as we got more photos, and everybody like as a community was like, yeah, we're getting Professor Hulk. And I did a bunch of videos on it. And one of the things about Professor Hulk is in the comics, he kind of puts a failsafe inside of his brain to where if he gets too angry, he reverts back to Bruce Banner. And I think we saw that, but in like a different way. It's very clear that they're actually one, like he said, he spent like 18 months in like a gamma chamber. And I'm like, okay, so they're not just like, this isn't like he didn't put something in him and he flips a switch and he can become both, right? He is both now. Like they're fused into one. So the failsafe in the movie is almost that, like he just doesn't get that angry anymore. Right? Even when he's like in the New York, they go back in time. He's like, maybe smash a few things along the way, and he's just kind of like, okay, right? It's almost just kind of like that part is gone because remember the brains are Banner now, right? So that whole Hulk smash mentality isn't really there. I was a little disappointed because I thought we would get more of a rematch between him and Thanos, but the fact that he does the snap and brings everybody back, the first snap, I would say, I was like, you know what? That's what the Hulk was there for. And it's like he said, it's like, I was made for this, right? It's all gamma radiation is what's going to happen, right? That's what the Hulk is. And I was like, that to me was satisfying enough for the Hulk not to get his rematch.
Yeah, because because he's the one who's able to handle the snap in a way he is beating. Yeah, he is helping with beat Thanos now in that department. Also, I feel like him being Professor Hulk is it's not just a new version of the Hulk. It makes sense for the arc of
it had to happen.
Hulk. Yeah, because like how Natasha points out, you didn't think this was happening because he's always been in conflict of trying to heal himself, get rid of the Hulk, suppress him, keep him under control. But learning to embrace the Hulk is, to me, made sense in terms of the Bruce Banner character arc overall. So I personally really loved it. Simultaneously, though, if you are on the side where you don't like it, I totally get it, because that is not the association that you have grown. Like, we love the Hulk because of the Hulk smash and the craziness. That's why we love the Hulk. And Thor, same thing. So I get that. But for me, because it was so well justified, I don't mind it, and that's why.
I didn't either. Even though I love the other versions, like I didn't mind it either. And the funniest thing to me was there was so much talk in the community about Professor Hulk and like what he's gonna be like and everything that's gonna happen. It was so funny that they just like, oh, here's a scene and here's Professor Hulk.
Yeah.
Professor Hulk.
Throw him in there.
Kind of like, oh, they're just gonna throw like no, like a brief explanation, but they're like, hey, this is who he is, guys. Like he's Professor Hulk. We're not gonna get into it that much, but that's who he is. And I was like, okay.
And I think what made it funny was because they took a gentle giant approach with it, and I think the Mark Ruffalo cadence is perfect for that version because Mark Ruffalo's and I think that was one thing I really loved about it too is an actor, because they do mocap for the Hulk, but there's not really much performance that gets to go on into it other than some body language to be the Hulk, you know. And I know he got to have a little bit more fun and do that a little bit more with Ragnarok, but here, no, you get a full on Mark Ruffalo performance, and I thought that was really cool that you get the best of both worlds here, because to me, I'm like, I love Mark Ruffalo as an actor, but when he's the Hulk, you don't really get Mark Ruffalo, and then here you get to have both. And at least the one thing they do give you in terms of making up for fan service in Infinity War, they have that shot of the Hulk running that they just made for the trailers, which is nowhere in the movie. At least in the battle, you do see Hulk running. That's like the one thing I thought of. I'm like, Hulk's actually running in this shot. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. It all came full circle at the end of the day, and this was really the conclusion for all of these OG Avengers. What I love is that within this whole, roller coaster ride of a movie, each single OG Avenger got their own ending. We saw Hawkeye go back to live with his family. Black Widow, of course, sacrificed her life. How many of you did you guys expect that at any moment of her sacrificing her life in this movie?
No.
I mean,
yeah. When they got the Vormir, like, Hawkeye's got a family. She's got like the Avengers as her family. I'm like, but he's got kids. I'm like, she's gonna at least say that she wants to be the one to do it. And I was like, I'm sure they'll fight. They ended up fighting. And for a second, I was like, oh, Hawkeye got it. He jumped. Right? She jumped after him. And I was like, that's probably how it had to go. Like in real life, right? If you looked at it, because they both love each other immensely. Yeah. So if you look at it and you're just kind of like, Hawkeye, you saved me, when I was a KGB agent. You gave me like the Avengers as a family. You have a family of your own. That's the whole point right now, is trying to bring them back. It's got to be me. It's like, that makes sense, right? That it's her. But before that, no. I was like, wow, did not expect her to die. No.
Yeah, for sure.
Funny enough, when that whole scene is where one of my very few complaints actually come in, because I think the acting is great, and I think the sequence of them trying to pretty much out-suicide each other is pretty cool. Like, that was neat to me.
That was badass.
And I'll be honest, the first time I watched it, I didn't believe she was actually dead.
Me neither.
I was on the spectrum where Thor was at. Was like, why are we talking as if she's dead? We're gonna get the stones. We're gonna make this work, and we're gonna bring her back. Right? That's the way this works. That was where my mind was at actually with it. I was thinking, oh, she's fine. This really has no weight. And so the second time I watched it, it hit me a little bit more because of that. I just felt in terms of editing and pacing, because you don't check in with them for a long time. Then you get to Vormir, and then suddenly we're like redoing a lot of Thanos and Gamora, but it's kind of a rushed edited version, because you can't just redo that whole thing with the same kind of pacing, because in Infinity War that really takes its time, because you're reintroducing Red Skull, you're introducing this concept of how to get the Soul Stone, you're introducing the weight of all this, so you can't just replicate all that, because it would be I could feel sort of the conflict of, well, we can't really take our time as much and resetting this up, because people just saw all that in Infinity War, so we can't really do that here. So I feel like because of the way my only complaint is the way it led into that. I felt like I would have had more of an impact, perhaps even cried, if there was some better lead into it. And maybe it also has to do with the bummer of, there's this talk that they're working on that Black Widow prequel movie or whatever, but I have been on the side of, I've always felt that Black Widow never really got her due in the MCU, and so for me it was a little bit of a letdown of, I wish they didn't kill her off, because she still deserved to have a bigger presence, or at least her own if she had her own standalone movie first and then they did that, it might have held a little bit more weight for me personally. But that's just me. I don't really know how if anyone agrees with me on that at all.
Like, I was kind of along the same boat because I was just kind of like, she wasn't done justice, and I felt that even if you killed her, but waited a little bit longer, like more towards the end, I probably even would have been a little bit more satisfied. Bummed that she died because I didn't want her to, but I'm bummed that she died so soon in the movie.
Yeah.
I get it. It's for you need the Soul Stone, right? Like you have to do that. But
another thing too is that like Nebula knew that you have to sacrifice a soul for a soul. Don't you think that information is something she should have shared with them?
Did she know that for sure though? Because I know that they didn't.
Because remember in Infinity War when she was telling Star-Lord that he went to Vormir and he came back with a stone and without Gamora?
Yeah, so she knew, and she didn't make it that clear because she was like, that's where Thanos murdered my sister. And it's just kind of like, well, maybe you should have been like, well, that's where Thanos sacrificed my sister to get the Soul Stone because you have to sacrifice somebody to get the Soul Stone. Maybe we should.
No, instead she's like, nah, I'll go to Morak. I'll pass on Vormir.
Well, you see, to me, I mean, that moment in Infinity War read to me as she put two and two together. That right to me, it read that they went to Vormir, they got the stone, and then Gamora wasn't needed anymore, so he killed her. That's how I thought Nebula interpreted it, because Nebula does bring up to the group when she's explaining where the Soul Stone is, where Vormir is. She does explain that's where Thanos killed my sister. Right. So and so I think if she actually knew what the process was to get the Soul Stone, I think she would have mentioned that. But I don't think she knows that you have to sacrifice in order, because Thanos was kind of just killing so many people in Infinity War that I don't. To me, it's not clear if she actually knows the ritual in order to obtain the Soul Stone. So
she probably didn't, because Thanos didn't and Gamora didn't until they got there.
Exactly. Because if Gamora is the one who also tucked away the Soul Stone, right? So if Gamora and Thanos didn't know. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine Nebula would know that there was a ritual that was required, and that's why Gamora was killed.
Right, and there isn't for any of the other stones. So why would you just think randomly, oh, the Soul Stone, that's different, right?
Yeah.
And you make a good point. She does say that's where Thanos, she says murdered. That's where Thanos murdered my sister. And that's not a sacrifice, right? Those are two different things. So you make actually a pretty good point. She probably didn't really know.
Yeah.
Yeah, after talking about it now, she probably didn't know. But, like, when they were like assembling the teams and like different lineups to go to different places, one thing I was really looking forward to, and I thought we would get in this movie, is a Cap and Red Skull reunion. And low-key, that's something that actually happened, because when Cap at the end of the movie goes back in time and goes to put back the stones, I'm sure he might have come across Red Skull, but that's something we probably didn't see.
Yeah, that is something I thought about right before I went to bed last night, actually. Was when he does time travel back, he has to return the Soul Stone. So what happened there?
Yes, right? Like he just throws it down there.
Like, here you go.
I think it would have been funny, but again, they put so much in the movie, I don't think that was necessary.
Yeah.
I would have seen it, but
I feel like the way the Cap thing goes down, I think there's a lot to nitpick there. Like, where did he get the shield? Because the shield gets destroyed in Endgame when he's fighting Thanos. Yeah. So at what specific point did he go back? Did he take it from his old version of himself? Did he go to Howard Stark and ask for a new one? Like what went down in order to get a shield to give to Sam down the road? Because as in Captain America: The First Avenger, I think they say that level of vibranium is like the last of it is on the shield.
Right, that's all. Yeah.
So, but I also know he knows of Wakanda, so perhaps he goes to Wakanda or something. Yeah, that's what I mean. I was like, well, there's things you could definitely nitpick in the way, or try to speculate of what went down. But for me, the most fascinating part is what was his encounter with Red Skull when he had to return that Soul Stone,
After watching this movie, like me and my friends were talking about it, and there's actually a couple of things that like didn't really make sense, like such as the Cap and shield thing. But another thing that doesn't make sense at all is how all of the kids just return back to school and like everyone's like just goes back to their grade, or like even though 5 years have passed since the snap, is this like coming back from summer vacation or something? Like, how does that work?
Oh, you're back.
Yeah.
School.
Yeah, right. Can I have a second?
I was gone for 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something that like I was thinking about, and I did in my review, or I did in my ending explained yesterday. The fact that you have that little scene with Tony, and I shouldn't say little scene, that scene that almost makes you cry with Tony and Peter on the battlefield. He's like, you remember when I was turning to dust? So he remembers it, right? So you have to imagine that everybody else at least remembers it. They may not know what happened, right? But the whole, so when Tony tells Bruce, just bring the people back, don't undo the last 5 years. Now that's really so he can, that's really him going, don't kill my daughter, right? Don't take away what has happened because I've married and I have a daughter now. So don't undo the last 5 years. So the snap just brings people back. It doesn't erase the fact that a snap did happen before. So everybody that's alive knows that these people died. So it's not like it never happened. You can't act like it never happened, right? Now it's a universe where it happened. And the people at least remember like a blur of turning to dust and maybe falling asleep and then waking up randomly, right? Like Peter said, he's like, oh yeah, I woke up and he's like, I must have passed out because then I woke up and Doctor Strange was like, hey, it's been 5 years. And he was just kind of like, huh, it was kind of like in the blink of an eye to him. Kind of like the time travel was like, oh, I'm going to send him back a week. It's going to be like 5 seconds though. Yeah. So they have to be aware that some of them died, but their friends will have to be there and be like, dude, you died like 5 years ago. You were dead. This guy, Thanos, snapped his fingers, but the Avengers came and they undid it. But hey, you died. So they have to know, right? Because they live in a world now where the snap happened.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see in Far From Home how that whole, atmosphere and how the world is going to be after Avengers Endgame. Because, dude, this is a universe.
Right.
This is something that the world can never really recover from. So it's going to be interesting to see the world post Endgame.
Well, I think now because they kept the snap a thing they didn't undo. Like I think a lot of us thought, especially when we knew about the time travel element, that they're probably going to undo the snap before we saw this movie. Mm-hmm. But I think because they kept the snap in there, that there's this 5 years later thing. I think now is the perfect time to introduce the concept of mutants as well. In terms of like the Disney Fox deal and getting the X-Men in there. Like now would be like the perfect time to start leaving trinklets of I have the belief that if you introduce the concept of mutants before you introduce the X-Men in a Marvel movie, that would probably be better and a way to transition in. Yeah. And so I think now would actually be the perfect time for it.
Oh yeah, so at least mention it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel I know in the world of, I know we're not really talking about this, but I know in like the world of X-Men they have mutants have been around forever. Yeah. But I think maybe, I don't know. It just kind of seems like totally that it would fit with the way how things have been going in the MCU lately, and maybe the birth of some mutants coming to the surface now. That would be a cool way to transition into it. I am looking forward to see what. I wonder if the future, like, because what do we know about? We know about Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, and Guardians 3, right? Mm-hmm. Which, I think we should talk about that though. I mean, with Guardians, they say as Guardians of the Galaxy here. So, and I know that James Gunn's returning I'm curious to know if is Thor going. I think that'd be pretty cool if you get Thor Ragnarok, which is a Thor Hulk movie, and then you get a Guardians movie, which is Guardians and a Hulk movie. I think that would be pretty neat. And I kind of get this impression, and I'm really loving doing this talk because there's so much I didn't talk about before. I know that they like to do their references to other movies in here, and I remember at the end of this movie, you still see Star-Lord searching for Gamora.
Yeah, I feel like that's gonna play kind of a role within Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Like maybe she's still out there and he's searching for her.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest Star Trek fan per se, but I know that after Star Trek 2, I think the next one was the search for Spock, and I'm kind of wondering if they're going to do a little bit of a spin on that, because it seems like that if Gamora, they haven't really brought up the rules of what happened with, because in Infinity War you see young Gamora at the end, so Gamora must be in the Soul Stone. Black Widow might still be alive and in the Soul Stones too, which could lead to bringing them both back into Guardians 3. And that would be cool to have Thor there, where I imagine he would probably lose the weight by that point. Yeah.
Yeah, probably. And you have to, like, if we go way back before James Gunn got fired and everything, it's like, okay, post-credit scene, Volume 2, Adam Warlock. Yeah. And if you look at the comments, how strong Adam Warlock is, sorry, Guardians, none of you can take on Adam Warlock. Mm-hmm. So how do you do that? You give him Thor.
Yes.
Right?
Ah, yeah, good call. Good call. Yeah, I didn't think
that's
about
a great call.
Yeah,
I didn't think about that.
Yeah. Well, that's what I initially thought. Like, after I saw the movie, I'm like, how's Guardians of the Galaxy? I'm like, that makes sense because hopefully we still get Adam Warlock. That's what was set up. And he's just, he's the lead in the Infinity Gauntlet saga in the comics, right? Which is what Infinity War and Endgame are based off of. Like, he's the lead, and he's almost too strong, which may be why they just didn't throw him in here. But he's definitely too strong for the Guardians, right? So a lot of people are like, well, maybe Star-Lord will get his, kind of celestial powers back. But at the end, I was like, no, they're just going to give him Thor, and that's how they're going to go take on Adam Warlock in the next movie. So, to me,
that's a great point because, I mean, they do set, even though Adam Warlock is a hero in the Infinity Gauntlet series,
right?
They definitely set him up to be a villain in that post-credit scene in Guardians too. So that would actually be pretty sweet. I did not cross my mind. That would be pretty cool. Yeah.
I gotta say, like, I built Adam Warlock to destroy the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Right. Damn. That would be pretty sweet.
Yes. Dude, Adam Warlock and Thor going at it. Ooh,
yeah.
Can't wait for that.
Yeah.
But even though this movie was a conclusion to everything, I also felt that it did a great job in setting up what's to come. Like, the next thing that's to come is the shows for the Disney Plus series.
Yeah.
I feel like it did a good job in setting up that Hawkeye thing where he's going to be teaching his daughter, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So, teaching his daughter. Wanda, Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, and Vision.
She's going her own way. Bucky and Falcon. And then we also got Loki escaping with that space stone. So that could possibly set up his own series. And then, of course, Thor joining the Guardians of the Galaxy. So even though this was a conclusion to the people we've grown up with since day one, Iron Man, Cap, Black Widow, Hulk, it still does a great job in setting up what's to come. And I also feel that Captain Marvel, after watching this movie, I'm totally on board with her leading the new Avengers because she is just a complete badass. And when she just tore through Thanos' ship, and when she's fighting Thanos and she just catches that headbutt and like if nothing, that was completely badass. And I can't wait to see more of her with that new haircut, that comic accurate haircut. Love it.
I know that the way her performance is, especially in her standalone movie, people can be a little bit divided on the depth of her performance.
Yeah.
Like for me, I myself am kind of pretty split on her performance overall. But then when I hear the process of how she was brought into this franchise, because she says she shot her Endgame scenes before and a lot of the time she doesn't even know who she's acting with when she's shooting these scenes. She doesn't know who she gets like so little context. Where I feel like all the other actors at least got to participate in a film before where they got so much context to work off of, where she gets like close to none. And so it actually can make sense to be a little bit more now like, oh, that's probably why there's sometimes you feel like there's a lack of depth because she's given close to no information for so much of what she's shooting, and an actor needs all that. So I'm hoping going forward, now that she's got these two movies established, she can get more of, because she's an Oscar-winning actress. She's a wonderful actress. So I'm hoping we get more of that nuance. What's up?
Sorry, I know. I was just saying, I love Brie Larson. I was just agreeing with you. I love Brie Larson. I was kind of split too. I was worried going in. I was like, because it's not about Captain Marvel. It's really about the first 11 years, like kind of before Captain Marvel came out.
Yeah.
I thought they did a great job. She came in, she destroyed his ship, she kicked his butt, but at the same time, he still fought back and stopped her, right? Until it eventually came back down, to the OGs. It was Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, who had like the final blow with Thanos, right? So But it's true what you said. It's so funny. She basically knew like nothing filming, and I think it was only Robert Downey Jr. and I guess Chris Evans, or maybe Benedict Cumberbatch that actually got the entirety of the script. Nobody else did.
Yeah, I feel like at least Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. They're the ones who would most need to. Yeah. Especially because they were both leaving. That it would make the most sense for them to know the whole context, as their performances arguably mattered the most out of anyone else's in this movie. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like count because you're done.
Yeah.
And now I want to talk about the biggest moment in the entire movie, the death of Iron Man. What a death! Like, oh my God, it was so surreal because Marvel isn't the type of studio to just kill off one of their main characters, but the fact that they finally did it, and it was such a beautiful death, calling back to the first Iron Man film where it ends with him saying, "I am Iron Man," and then here saying, "I am Iron Man" as one of his final words. It was just such a beautiful scene. And then we also got Rhodey, Peter, and Pepper, the three most important people in his lives, saying goodbye to him before he drifts off. So sad. It was so
finally gets to rest. That seems to be like a theme with his character in all these movies. He can't.
I thought that shot of the funeral scene where they're like going, like the camera's panning over to like every single hero as they're like mourning.
Yeah.
Tony, and then we also see that kid from Iron Man 3.
Yeah,
brought back. That was just such an awesome shot, and like the music, it was such an emotional scene, very, very tear-jerking.
Well, yeah, I mean the emotional context of the two different kinds of delivery too on the final line of "I am Iron Man" is so cool, because when he says "I am Iron Man" in the first one, he just wants he wants the attention, you know?
Right.
Yeah, he's like, no, I want to be known. Because he's narcissistic. He wants that recognition, and here the symbolism of sacrifice is such a different thing here when he does say that line as a last stand against Thanos. That it was beautiful, and because they tease so often that he's going to die. You know, like there's been so many movies where like they're gonna kill him. Never mind, he's not dead. Like there's Infinity War even did it, and every time, and when Pepper, like I imagine you guys probably cry. I feel like every time I've seen this movie, people are just bawling at that scene, and I'm with them. And when Pepper says, "It's going to be okay, Tony. You can rest now," and she's not crying; she's holding back her emotions because she wants him to just go out peacefully. That's the moment where I'm like, "Oh crap, here it is!" Like that's when I start to bawl, you know. And and I also, you know, I think the writing of Pepper too is kind of understated here, because I love how she's even grown as a character, to someone who just knows she can't. She's always trying to be like, "Tony, stop. Tony, retire. Tony, don't do this." But at the very beginning, when he figures out time travel, she's even like, "I know I can't talk you out of this.
I love
it. I know you're going to do it."
Yeah,
right? You know?
Yeah, I support you. And then even here, it's that understanding of just like, oh, he can finally rest now. Right. And I think it wasn't. I feel like a lot of us have been saying that if you are going to do the culmination, if you are going to transition into a next phase, arguably the person you should kill off is Iron Man.
The one who started it all.
Yeah, that would make the most sense to have a defining bookend to this culmination. Right. So and it was handled beautifully. And I'm glad that it wasn't switched, that it wasn't like, oh, Captain America dies, but Tony is going to retire or something. Right. I like how they actually did a flip of that, because Captain America did deserve to have a life. And I actually didn't notice it until the second time. I don't want to get off topic from the Iron Man thing too much, but I didn't notice this till I saw it the second time. At the beginning of the movie, when Black Widow and Cap are talking with each other before Ant-Man shows up, Captain America says, "We both need to get a life," and then she says, "You first." I'm like, oh damn, they're foreshadowing. Like she's gonna die, but he's gonna have a life by the end of this movie. That was so cool, so cool.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. They did it right. It was really weird. I did a video right before I saw Endgame. It was quick, and I was just like, this is what I think will happen. And real quick off topic, I was like, okay, two different scenarios. First one, I don't think it's going to happen. And I literally was like, the Avengers are going to go, they're going to kill Thanos, but the stones don't work anymore. They're going to wait for a long time. Ant-Man's going to pop up, and then they're going to go do time travel. I'm like, but that probably won't happen. I don't think they'll take that direction. I'm watching the movie. I'm like, it happened. Like,
Yeah.
but at the end, I was like, and I bet you Iron Man dies. I was like, because he started it, right? He's the very first one, right? The first one. I'm like, it should end with him, like Greg said. I'm like, if you're gonna end it, if you're gonna bring it to an end it with who started it, right? And kind of like you kind of give that to him. Like, I saved the universe. I died trying, but I saved the universe. And he got his 5 years, right? It's not a lot of time, obviously, right? But he got those 5 years where he got to be with Pepper, he got to be with his daughter, and we saw him live like this really, really happy life. And then at the end,
it was his destiny.
Right, I am Iron Man. Exactly, like I am Iron Man. Like, this is what I was born to do. Like, I was born to save the universe. That's who I am. I am Iron Man. And then Captain, I think a lot of people wanted him to get that dance with Peggy. So that was super satisfying as well. So it's like, I agree. I think they did it the right way, and I'm glad they didn't switch it, because although I hate that he died, it's very, very satisfying the way they did it. It was all the writing, right? Like, the way they did it, the way he acted it all out, the way that they had Pepper there. Greg, like you were saying, like, she really was trying to make it about him at the end, holding everything back, kind of like, Tony, it's okay. We're going to be fine. You know what? You can rest now. Like, all about him. Like, you're Iron Man. You did this. You just saved everybody. Like, it's okay. It's finally time. You can rest.
Well, yeah, I mean, it harkens back even to I know that in the arc in Avengers Assemble is when there's a moment where Cap tells Tony that you're not the kind who would lay down his life, throw his body on a grenade or something like that. And even though he does go into space and is willing to sacrifice himself, he doesn't die. But I do really like the emphasis on how he starts off as a narcissistic, selfish guy and ultimately arcs into a dude who's completely selfless by the end of this, where he flat out knowingly gives up his own life so humanity can go on and all these people can still have a life, which I thought was it was a beautiful way to wrap it up. It's so weird to think of how you start off with this like post 9/11 movie, which is very contained and very grounded, and now you're in this like cosmic like craziness with the same character here. It's pretty nuts to me that we've gotten this far in like 11 years. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
And his death, I feel like it's going to really build up the character of Spider-Man now. Because now Spider-Man has, with whatever challenges he's facing, he has to learn to do it without the assistance of Iron Man. Iron Man can't come and save him this time. Now it's all on him. And I feel like that's really going to build up his character moving forward into his Spider-Man's future within the MCU. Because he's by far Marvel's biggest character when it comes to like their poster boy. That's Spider-Man.
That's kind of why I'm annoyed they released the Far From Home trailer.
Yeah, I am
because
too.
They made it too obvious that Tony would die, because Happy does have that line where he says we're alone now or something like that.
Yeah.
And everyone when they heard that who like reads into trailers at all went, oh, does that mean Tony's dead? Like, and then you watch this video, you're like, yeah, okay, Tony's dead, and Happy's So. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I don't know. It's really hard for me to imagine, because Tony was so obviously the face of the MCU.
Yeah.
And if you don't have Tony as the face of the MCU, then it's definitely at least Captain America who's the face of the MCU. And now I'm like, who's the face of the MCU now that they're both gone? So I'm very curious to see where this goes, because I'm very proud of the MCU for like landing on this specific one, because even if their next phase sucks, even if all their films from here on out just happen to be like, it's not, I really don't think it's going to happen. But even if they happen to be they're all shit, they at least have these solid 22 film installments and that tell this complete story better than any franchise. It's like Lord of the Rings was great, but then they had The Hobbit, which was awful. Star Wars trilogy, great, and then they have the prequels, and then there's big debates with these recent Marvel did 22 films that ultimately told this very specific Infinity Stone story.
Yes.
To me is like there's from here, like no matter what happens in the future, they'll always have these 22 films now, which I think is so cool. And it's a great time. And like for fans of comics, for fans of cinema, it's like a great time to just be alive, you know?
Oh, it is. And you know what's also awesome about it is like right now we got to live this, like you said, like we lived it. Like they're going to live forever. It's like Star Wars, right? The original Star Wars. Like they're just going to be timeless. And I thought I saw a meme the other day and it was like, something like, Dad, I found these old movies in the garage. Can I watch them? It's like, sure. What are they? Avengers film. And it was like, Steve, get your brothers, Tony and Thor. We got to.
Yes. Yes.
They're just going to be timeless, right? Like, I'm going to make my kids watch them and everything like that. It's just like, they'll live on forever. And Greg, like you said, it's like, even if the rest of them just crap the bed, it's like they're not going to. But even if they're just horrible, we still got these 20.
Yeah, this whole like self-contained story. Now it's the rest, but this it's separate.
Yeah.
It's the craziest fleet I've ever seen done because it's like you can hate the Star Wars prequels, you could not like these sequels that have come out, but they'll always have the trilogy, those 3 films.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings, you can hate the Hobbit films, you might not even like this Amazon show that's coming out, but they'll always have the original trilogy. Mm-hmm. These guys will always have these 22 films. Yeah, it's not just a trilogy. It's 22 films that they pulled off this thing that just sounds impossible, and the fact that it boggles my mind just how much they stuck the landing. You know,
it was such a good ending.
It's my favorite because to me it just represents the MCU. I don't agree with the criticisms of an MCU film when someone says, yeah, it's a great film, but is it really my favorite because you have to watch other ones in order to understand this one? I'm like, but that's kind of the whole point of the MCU.
Yeah, right.
They're supposed to. That they're all connected. That's the whole point of them. And to me, if this was the MCU is kind of like the most expensive, biggest TV show ever. And so to me, I'm like, Avengers Endgame is the best episode of this show. That's how I would put it. Like, it's like the best season finale. Season finale of the MCU is the best episode I've seen. That's how I'd put it. You know,
that's a good way to put it. I like that a lot. Yeah, and it's funny because if like they did it so perfectly, but if you look back and like you try to pitch it. It's just kind of like, yeah, so what I want to do is have like, I don't know, maybe like 15 to 25 different movies. They're all going to interconnect with each other. A movie where they all are in one movie together, then they'll separate, we'll follow them around again, then we'll bring them back, then they'll separate, then we'll bring them back. It's like, I think that would be good. I think everyone would be like, that's impossible.
You're crazy.
Like, what? And like, we can't do that. Like, that's never been done before. And it obviously wasn't pitched that way. I mean, maybe a little bit, but what it's become and what it's grown into leading up until this, finale, right? The season finale is just been amazing to watch and experience and a great time to live. Like you were saying, Greg, just amazing.
When I would hear the word culmination thrown around for this movie, I didn't exactly know what that meant because I feel like I've heard the word culmination thrown around so often, especially for the MCU as well. Like Assemble, it's a culmination of Phase 1, or Infinity War was supposed to be that. But every movie that they've said is a culmination has always ended on a note of there's going to be more. There's going to be a lot more. Yeah. And then here it's like, yeah, we know there's going to be more. They did just enough set up to the point where I don't feel like that's why I'm okay that there's no post-credit scene here.
Yeah.
In this movie. The press screening crowd was cool with that. Opening night crowd. Oh man, they were pissed that there was no. Did you guys have that with your crowd? Were there people who were like audibly upset?
Yeah.
They were awing.
I heard one guy just flat out just say, "This is bullshit," like as if this 3-hour movie owed him this post credit scene.
I know, right?
But that's what I mean is to really have it be in a way where you can call this the ending, even though there's more coming.
Yeah.
It does put a stamp on it in a way where you're like, this is done, this is complete, more than any other Marvel movie ever. So yeah, this is weirdly the one. As much as like I follow the MCU and I cover it so much, this is the one MCU film I've seen where I'm always dying to talk about it, and I love talking about it. I had already I've spent more time talking about this one than any other MCU film.
Yeah. I tweeted the other day. I was like, "Can everybody just go see the movie so I can start doing spoiler videos on it?" Please, like,
yeah.
I'm ready to post the movie.
It's fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
But now wrapping things up with our huge spoiler discussion. Greg, I'm gonna start with you. What do you rate Avengers Endgame on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'm giving it. Yeah, I never say this, but I'm gonna give it a 10. I have my nitpicks.
10 out of 10.
I have my nitpicks. I do, but they're so nitpicky. Like, they're not.
And damn, the good in this movie is fucking the best.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything where I'm like, I don't like it, you know. Like, my only real complaint is I have two complaints basically. One is I felt the leading up to Black Widow death could have been maybe had better breathing room. And my other thing is, and it's only because I'm aware of how all the actors are like, I would show up on a green screen and I had no idea what I was shooting for. They just said, do this, and I did it. So when I watch that finale battle, I sometimes get slightly pulled out thinking, who was actually here together, you know? Like, whether you get all the women in that one shot, I'm like, I bet none of them knew this shot was happening. Or like when Star-Lord shows up and Spider-Man shows up, like, there's no way they knew they were gonna be here. Like, you can just feel that. Or even at like Tony's funeral, that was one element where I'm like, it's pretty apparent that all these guys were green screened here. Not all these people were not on set here. But that's not even story that I'm talking about. That's me just thinking about. That's me thinking about like the filming process of it, and then my one nitpick story wise is just the breathing room of leading up to Black Widow's death. But even that is ultimately a nitpick. So I wouldn't. I would definitely give this a 10 out of 10, and I rank it higher. Like I way prefer it over. I really like Infinity War, but that's never been considered my favorite. I've never even contemplated is this my favorite Marvel movie, but this one for sure was like, wow, I'm pretty surprised by how fast this hit number one for me, like right away. Yeah.
So 10 out of 10. Now Warren, what do you rate Avengers Endgame on a scale of 1 to 10?
Well, you know, it's funny, Greg, because before I went into the movie, I was told two things. And, well, one I saw, it was Vina Angelilli, who plays the Wasp, said, like, oh, yeah, when I was on the red carpet, like, I ran up to Josh Brolin. I was like, hi, it's so nice to finally meet you. And I'm like, it's like, what do you mean? So it's like, okay, so obviously, right, there's, like, you know, green screens and everything like that. Not everybody was in that scene. I think I was fortunate enough to not be in that mindset as it goes on. Obviously, thinking about it now, I'm like, oh, dang, yeah. But my nitpick was that I could have seen a longer movie, in all honesty. Like, and maybe that would have allowed things like a little bit more breathing room for Black Widow and Hawkeye, right? But at the end of the day, I'm like, it's a 3-hour movie, and I literally everything that I wanted from it, like everything. So I got to give it a 10 out of 10. It's by far not just my best, like not my favorite MCU movie, Avengers movie. It's right now it's my favorite movie of like all time. Like to me, it's just the best. So I got to give it a 10 out of 10.
It's up there because it's more than just epic. And the word epic can be loosely thrown around sometimes. Right. But to me, I'm like, if you're going to call a film an epic, it has to be more than just scale and battle. Yeah. It's like emotional context is so important too. And this film gives you that. Like it is to me the purest epic out of any MCU film.
It is. And like for sure, like for the three of us at least, and like others like us, like I'm so emotionally involved and invested, and I have been since the very beginning, right? All the way up until, you know, all of us having YouTube channels where we talk about it and we discuss it and we theorize and speculate and predict. Like, I was just so invested in it leading up to this movie, and that makes it just so much better for me, and that's why it's my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, definitely. I feel you on that.
For sure. So this is a film that's been 11 years in the making.
You gotta tell us now.
I'm gonna give Avengers Endgame not a 10 out of 10, but a 9 out of 10. Because
Okay.
when I originally watched the film, this being the most anticipated film of all time, I was going into it with this mindset that every little thing had to be perfect. But
Sure.
ultimately, there was a lot of things that weren't perfect, but it worked specifically for this movie.
Mhm.
And critics can tear this movie apart all they want, but this is a movie for the fans, and not everything necessarily has to make sense. But at the end of the day, this was a movie for the fans. We got everything we ever wanted to see in a comic book film, and it all made sense. The plot, the pacing, everything was perfect, and this was a definitive conclusion to the journey we've all been on for the past 11 years. So with that being said, I'm gonna give Avengers Endgame a 9 out of 10.
Good rating.
So with us wrapping this up, do you guys have any final thoughts before we end today's spoiler discussion of Avengers Endgame?
No, I just want this to settle in, and I'm not even really focused on what's coming next.
Yeah.
I feel like that's one of the cool things too, is that the MCU, you're often focused on what's coming next, what's going to happen next. And as much of as an ending this was, and as much as there's a setup for more to come, I'm like, that's weirdly the last thing on my mind. I'm
like trying to soak up this week.
Yeah, I'm still just so soaking this up and absorbing it and everything like that, and wanting to dissect it even more.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I love the impact of this movie, and I'm so glad that we are living in a time where we get to experience this. And yeah.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah, definitely.
Warren, any final thoughts?
My thoughts were honestly the same as Greg's. Like, a lot of people have been asking me lately, like, well, now what? And I'm like, honestly, like, I'm just going to go see the film a bunch more. I'm just going to soak it in because, again, it's like so much led up to this, and it's like it's finally happened. And I'm so just like, all right, this is where we are. And I just want to live in that moment. I would say wait till Spider-Man Far From Home comes out to start going like, well, because that's technically, they came out and said that's technically the last movie.
Yeah.
Phase 3. So just like wait till that comes out. I'm sure that'll have a post-credit scene, right? Maybe that'll set up Phase 4. And just enjoy like where we are right now. I mean, heck, it's only been out for like a few days, right? Worldwide at least, you know. Just enjoy it. The MCU is going to continue to bust out new movies that are awesome, right? They've done it successfully.
So much that's in store.
For 11 years, right? They know what they're doing. It's going to be fine. So, like Greg said, right now, just kind of enjoy it. I want to thank everybody that has followed, you know, all of us over these, you know, past years that we've had our channels. So there's a lot more to come, but enjoy the moment right now.
So with that being said, thank you guys for watching Superhero Sitdown episode 13. Make sure to check out Greg over on the Real Rejects and Warren over on the Cosmic Wonder YouTube channel. Links to both their content will be in the description of this video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and see you guys next time.